All right, it's part two with Mattie Safer, and yeah, and he like Mattie Safer. If you don't know him, he was in the Rapture. He was in Poolside. He's still in Poolside, and he has his own band, Safer. And I'm going to be playing a lot of these records on my radio show this Friday. And Lovetempo, my new favorite band, and like when I used to DJ in downtown LA, I used to play this. I used to start out with this record. I used to be I think back in whenever it was 2006 or 2007, I used to it was kind of my go-to. It's like a good like this or Iggy Pop or Iggy and the Stooges or or even Daft Punk or good songs to start off the night with, and stuff. So
Awesome.
and we're also celebrating the 20th anniversary of Echoes, which Mattie Safer had a large hand in. So in the previous episode, we were talking a bit about Luke and Luke. I follow him on social media a little bit, and he's a light. Now I don't know what he's been doing for the last 10 years, but he sort of did a solo record. He did a third Rapture record. He sort of plays under the Rapture. I don't know who he's playing with really. I don't know if I've seen him or not. And I think he's back in California. I don't know. But he's a life coach and stuff. I don't know. I mean, is that a real thing?
Um, I mean, life coaching as a job or him being a life coach?
Yeah, both. I don't know. I don't.
I mean, like I'll be honest with you, like I'm not in contact with Luke anymore. So I'm made aware of things. So I know that he's doing life coaching and like I don't know how that's working out for him, hopefully um hopefully some people are finding it helpful. I think life coaching is like definitely like it's a strange endeavor because it involves, there's no like certification or real training properly vetted, or at least very few properly vetted like training programs. So, I certainly worry about the kind of damage that it could be doing for people, or and what I would say is that based on my personal experiences with him, it's and what I've seen, it seems like his his sense of self-importance has increased a lot over the years, and it, I don't know, maybe some people need to be gassed up in that kind of way, and then for that it could be good to have a life coach who teaches people how to do that for themselves a little bit. But I would say I see him behave in ways that seem really cruel and selfish sometimes, and I would hate to think that you know people are learning how to do more of that.
Yeah, well, maybe it's one of those California things that you're an East Coaster. You go, what's you're probably looking at us. What's all this? Why is everyone a life coach? Why is everyone into yoga? Why is everyone into these weird cults and stuff here? And that's one of. I mean, I follow him, and he. I know he likes baseball, so he's into the Padres. Okay, so he's married. Has a kid. He's he talks about his wife saving his life, kind of like that's real important to him. And and so but he talks about a lot of these kind of 12-step things, or he always seems like a guy that should be in therapy and doing private things. And but he's always really public about like all these things about it in his life. Like I think it's okay to be in a 12-step program. It's okay to be in therapy and just sort yourself out and get better. And I don't know, it just seems like he always seems like really public about everything, like, oh, he wants to share all this stuff, like in some weird way, which maybe shouldn't be shared.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had much real contact with him over the past 7 years or so. So
Yeah.
I can't really speak to where he's at these
Okay.
days.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, enough about that guy. Okay, so you left the band, and so when you left the Rapture, what did? Oh yeah, I was gonna ask you. So like the whole time you've played like P basses and the Ampeg stack. Is that I look at a lot of the videos and it just seems like you usually have a Fender P bass and Ampeg cabinet there.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing the P bass for, I've been playing the same P bass for about 23 years now, I think, something like that. And yeah, it's the only, I mean, I own a second bass now, but for a long time it was the only bass that I owned. I just like the way it feels, and I don't know, just makes it simple, not having to like make a whole lot of choices about things. The Ampegs I don't have any particular affinity to. It's just at the time in Rapture days they were ubiquitous and like reliable. Um, with Poolside now, I usually use like a Galleon Kruger, um, just because it has that kind of like 80s kind of like funk bass sound that works good with Poolside.
Yeah.
But I'm not, I don't know, I'm also not a big like gear person. I'm just sort of like, I don't know, put the instrument in my hands and I'll make it work however I got to do it.
So do you like? Is there any bass players you like? Stanley Clark, James Jamerson.
I mean, James Jamerson for sure. Birdine White from Earth, Wind and Fire. Bernard Edwards from the Chic organization. Those are kind of like my like when I'm talking when I'm thinking about like other people's bass, when I'm thinking about the things that were like formational to like the way that I think about bass lines, those three go a long way to informing that for me. And of course, I mean many others too, but that's kind of my like my holy trinity right there.
And getting back to what I was saying before, when you okay, so you left the Rapture, the the third phase of the Rapture didn't really work for you. So somewhere around 2008, 2009, you're going, okay, well, I'm going to do my own thing. How did we get to Safer, the band, and to Lovetempo?
Okay, so um coming out of Rapture, like I was definitely just wanting to do something very different. Um, you know, for one reason or and really what I found myself doing was listening to a lot of like R&B and soul music and feeling like this music that was very like important to me and influential to me and exciting to me that I you know hadn't really had so many kind of opportunities to perform like since joining the Rapture. um so I started working on some solo records, and that got me eventually I did a deal with Paul Epworth. Had just started a record label, and I sent him some music that I had recorded, and he was into it and signed me to his label and publishing company, Wolf Tone. um but things kind of fell apart from there. I mean, like, um things at the label weren't really working the way that they were supposed to be, um and in terms of the way that they were running their business. And I probably was working through a lot of like demons and trauma still from the way that the Rapture experience had been working. So I think that I had some trust issues. They weren't really doing all the things that they were supposed to be doing as a label. In between one way or another, I did make a record, but um, it didn't end up getting released. And at one point I found out that there had been a label manager who had been like working there, and I delivered it and like not heard about anything about it for a long time. And then it turned out Paul had somehow never known that I had delivered the album. I don't know. It was a crazy situation, but basically I was signed to Paul's label for about 5 years. And then when I got out of it, I just sort of like self-released an EP under my own name using, you know, using music that I'd recorded while I was under contract to Paul, and then um, moved back to New York because I was in LA for a couple of years during that time period. It was definitely like a beyond that. I was also going through like some divorce and some like personal stuff on my own. So like LA, the last few years of being on signed to Paul's label was definitely really tough. But then I came back to New York and I kind of I don't know. I think I've reconnected with like a fuller version of myself than what I had been doing, and like started doing. I was The solo thing was feeling difficult, so I was like, you know what? Let me like just get back to like this thing that I know how to do really well, which is like play bass and sing with like a guitar player and a live drummer and like all this, just kind of get back to basics and like get at the time. It felt like there was a lot of like interesting music happening in New York City that like um I felt connected to in a weird way to the things that we'd been doing in the early 2000s. So that was definitely, between all that, it was sort of a source of inspiration to start the band Safer. Um, and that was all going great, and then a pandemic happened, and all of a sudden there was all this time by myself to work on music.
We're
Um,
during the 2000s. I mean, well, not 2000, it's more like 2010 to now. I mean, did you teach bass? Where did you get in a more academic situation back to?
I started teaching bass when I was so in the first half of the decade. I was like just kind of making it work, and I was signed to a label, so I had some money from that, and I was recording and playing shows and stuff like that. When I moved back to New York, I started teaching some, and so I was teaching, and I started a band, and kind of just reconnecting with that, and kind of just being a civil, just being like a kind of what I was in the year 2000 in some ways, like just like a guy who plays in a small local band, and like is like hanging out. And then two things happened. One was I started playing in Poolside, which like got me back out and touring again. Um and then in 2020, of course, everything what happened in 2020 happened, and all of a sudden like I found myself with a lot of time with in a situation where the way that it made sense, the music wasn't in line with sort of being in like a rock band like that can't play anywhere. And I don't know, I was really feeling like there was like a I wanted to get back into like disco and dance music in a kind of way that took a lot of these things that I'd been doing, and like just put I don't know, I felt like I found honestly, I just started doing, all of this is like me kind of trying to explain something that happened organically. Like I don't know, I just made a song that was like kind of like more disco-y, and I liked it. And so I just made another one, and the next thing you knew was like, okay, I had 4 or 5 songs that were good, and I was like, okay, this doesn't feel like Safer. This isn't like a post-punk band. This is like, programmed drums and bass guitar and lots of keyboards and percussion and stuff like that. So I'm gonna just call this a new project, and that's how Lovetempo came to be. It started off as like sort of the side project thing that I was doing during the pandemic, and then it kind of just took on a little bit of a life of its own.
So yeah, blanking out here. So did you play on the Poolside records? Any of the Poolside records? Did you play on the record?
I played some on the third album. I didn't play I didn't play on this most recent record very much. But I've definitely played, and I played bass and done some vocals and stuff like that for some of Jeff's releases in the past. It's a little hard to work on stuff, living on opposite sides of the country. Um but I'm, I'm still very much part of the band in terms of touring, and we have some dates coming up. I'm actually leaving tomorrow, so I'm going out to LA to play a show with Lovetempo, and then I'm heading to Texas to meet up with Poolside and do about 3 weeks of touring around Format Festival and Austin City Limits, and then some other like shows on the weekdays in between those all those festivals.
Did you play as Poolside? Did you play a lot of festivals this summer?
Yeah, we did. We played Lollapalooza, we played Osheaga, we played I'm blanking out. What's the one in San Francisco?
Outside lands.
Played Outside Lands, yes. We did like, and then we played a few festivals in Mexico too. But with the Poolside album coming out, October 20th, things are starting to ramp up a little bit, and we'll probably be on tour. So we're on tour for about 3.5 weeks this year, and then I think we're on tour for like probably a couple months at least next year.
Yeah, because I think Poolside, I mean, kind of started out as a studio project, a DJ thing, and I think they even did like a Rapture remix at some point, right?
Uh, that would they might have. I don't know. That would have been when I was out of the Rapture, so
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know. But Jeff from Poolside is like an old friend. I mean, he was an old friend of Vito and Luke's. They played in the band that Vito and Luke were in before the Rapture was called the Calculators, and Jeff was the singer. They all lived in a house together in San Francisco, so over the years, like whenever Rapture would be on the West Coast, Jeff would, we'd be hanging out with Jeff. He did a lot of like gigs, like where he came along and like opened with us, or like we would DJ together and stuff like that. Um, and then when I was living in LA, I would hang out with Jeff a lot then too, and played bass on some things that he was working on. So when him and Philip parted ways, he needed somebody who could step in and play bass and sing. So we had known each other, and we'd known each other for so long. And Vito had already been playing with Jeff a little bit, so he reached out, and it's been really good ever since.
And Lovetempo. I mean, it's disco, it's bossa nova, it's your jazz background. It's like everything in one thing. It seems. I mean, it's really fresh. It seems real new. It seems really as good as anything you ever done. I
Thank
mean,
you a lot. Thank
it's
you. Yeah,
it's
I feel it's the thing that I've made that feels the most authentically like myself. Um, Not to put shade on like the other things that I've done, but like I said, like the Rapture was a collaboration. At its best, like was it was none at its best. It wasn't what it didn't feel like one person's vision at all. It was like the process of push and pull between three and then four people. So this is like a situation where I'm kind of more. I've learned enough. I have a vision, and I've learned enough over the past 10, 15 years to be able to actually execute it the way that I want and understand what I'm best at. So
yeah, it's really good. And remember, people, like everybody in LA, you should go down there to Gold Diggers on Thursday, the 14th. You guys, what time are you guys gonna play at? Like 9 o'clock or?
yeah, the show starts at 9. It's going to be really fun. Funny enough, Philip, who used to be in Poolside, Turbo Tito, is going to be starting off playing records at 7 o'clock, and then the show is going to start at 9 o'clock with a band called Great Vacation, and then Love Tempo is going to play. It should be a great time.
Yeah, yeah. I did an interview. I used to write for Free Williamsburg, and I interviewed Junior Senior like 20 years ago and stuff. But yeah, so I know him from that band, and he was in I'm a Robot. I interviewed them too, and
Sick.
yeah, so yeah, he's a guy that you see around. He lives in LA now, or I thought.
He lives in LA. He lives in like Highland Park. He has a studio in his backyard, and yeah, just is producing, working on various projects, DJing still. I mean, I love him. He's such a talented producer and like nice guy. So it'll be good to it'll be good to play a show together.
And so if people want to check out your music, they go to mattiesafer.com, and there you got a Bandcamp for it's Lovetempo at Bandcamp. I'll put those all in the description here so people can find it. Those are the where should people go if they want to buy your music?
The Bandcamp for Love Tempo is probably the best place, but you know the first we released in, or I say we, but I released an EP earlier this year on the label Razor and Tape, and we released a physical. There is a physical 12-inch, and it's you can buy it on Bandcamp, but you can also buy it at like all the wherever else you go to buy like dance vinyl, or if you're in Brooklyn, you can go to their store and buy it there. Yeah,
How's the so you live in Brooklyn or New York or
I'm
now?
in Brooklyn. Yeah, I'm in Williamsburg.
How are okay, yeah, I used to live on Lorimer Street there back in the day. So
Me too.
and Bedford Avenue and Driggs, multiple places. But so how's Williamsburg doing? Like, I mean, I was there in like '96 and back then.
Williamsburg is like 10 times more convenient and like 100 times less cool. So, you know, it is what it is. Like I mean, it's nice. Like there are now like you can go to the grocery store, you can go to the movies, you can get your book checked out or whatever, your iPhone has all of that stuff. The transportation is more reliable, all that. But like, I mean, there's still a couple cool venues and bars, but it's certainly not what it was in like, you know, the early 2000s or whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, that's how it goes. Life doesn't stop moving.
Yeah, when I lived right there on in Greenpoint and Williamsburg, I mean, like half the people spoke Polish and stuff, so it was like no, it was like living in Eastern Europe or something. And then
Yeah.
there was the El Cafe and maybe three bars and one grocery place. And yeah, like Sam from Interpol used to have Beacon's Closet with his wife back then, and I think Cindy worked at the El Cafe, and one of the guys from Secret Machines worked at the El Cafe, and then bands used to practice there, like back in the '90s. I mean, Nick Zinner and the guy from T on the Radio lived in Williamsburg. Like everybody seemed to go there back then.
Yeah.
But were you always in Williamsburg and Brooklyn, or?
I mean, when I first moved to New York, I lived in the city and I lived in Chinatown for a little bit. And then lived in Prospect Heights for 2 or 3 years. But after that, it was pretty much just all Williamsburg and Greenpoint. So for the better part of 20 years, barring the LA period, I've been in Williamsburg or Greenpoint.
So just a reminder, everyone should check out mattiesafer.com, the Bandcamp. I'm gonna do all that. There's the gigs. The Love Tempo is playing at Gold Diggers in LA on Santa Monica Boulevard. And then after later in the year, you'll be like probably in October, you'll be playing with Poolside in the South, right?
I'll be all over the South, starting in like sort of late September, October. We're doing Format Festival. We're doing Austin City Limits, and then we're doing going to a couple places that I've never been before. So I'm excited. We're going to like Tulsa, Oklahoma.
So how many shows have you played as Love Tempo? There was the one New York show, and then this one.
No, I've played. I'm not exactly sure. I would guess it's somewhere between like 8 and 15 shows, which I know is a kind of a broad range, but
Yeah.
I don't want to oversell it or overshoot it
Okay.
or undershoot it.
Okay, so there's more than the New York, LA shows.
We did New York. We also did a little bit. We did a little tour, West Coast tour with 79.5 last spring, who are label mates on Razor and Tape, and we played. You know, it's very short. We did like Seattle, San Francisco, and LA. I played in Love Tempo's played in Mexico City, played in Austin, Texas, a couple times. So It's got around a little bit.
Okay, so you live for the road. Okay, so you're great. You're out there. And so are we gonna Love Tempo, are we gonna see like a full record like anytime soon, you think?
Yeah, I mean, so I have a single that's coming out this fall, a collaboration with a singer called Prince Terrence, and then yeah, just finishing up mixing like a full set of music it's certainly enough record. It's certainly enough songs for an album. So haven't figured out how it's going to be released yet, but there's a bunch of new music coming. That's for sure.
Okay, well, thanks for talking to me. Mattie Safer, he's like I've seen him play. He's a real one talented dude. You know, he's definitely like legit. He's the real Matty Safer is the real deal here. You know, people like check it out. Whatever he does, if it's Poolside, Lovetempo, you know, Safer solo, it's you know, you should be checking it out because it's a. I mean, it's as good as anything I'm seeing out there. So I'll be playing a lot of these records on my radio show. So check it out and check out this interview. It'll be going out like this week and thank you again for talking to me. It's fun. You know, the Rapture was maybe like the only band I never interviewed back in the day, you know, because I mean, you guys were so intimidating, you know. Look at these guys jumping around here.
Definitely look like we might need some toughs.
And but it's glad to finally talk to you. And yeah, maybe I'll probably see you at the show on Thursday.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Thank you
Okay,
so much.
take care. See you next time. Let's see, let me stop this. Okay, well, let's see. Is that it?